The late nights, the private phone calls, the vague answers about their finances. Marcus Shaw saw every red flag and ignored them all because he trusted her. That trust cost him $340,000, 3 years of his life, and nearly destroyed him. But the money wasn't the real betrayal. This is the story of a man who gave his partner everything and discovered she'd been using him while building her real life with someone else. It's about blind trust, devastating betrayal, and the painful journey back to yourself. Before this story unfolds, let me know, what city are you in right now? Comment below. And if you're here for authentic, emotional storytelling about surviving betrayal, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what happens next. Marcus Shaw had built his life on trust. Not the naive kind that ignored reality, but the deliberate kind. The kind that understood risk and chose vulnerability anyway. The kind that came from believing that connection was worth the possibility of pain. He had learned, over years of living and losing, that a life without trust was a life half-lived. And he had chosen to trust Claire. They met 3 years earlier at a charity fundraiser neither of them truly wanted to attend. Marcus was 38, an architect known for designing sustainable housing, projects meant to give people dignity, not just shelter. Claire was 35, a financial advisor who specialized in nonprofit organizations. They collided by the dessert table, both reaching for the last slice of chocolate cake, and laughed at how predictable the moment felt. That laugh became a conversation. The conversation became an hour. Claire was sharp, confident, deeply knowledgeable about her work. She asked Marcus thoughtful questions about architecture, about his belief that buildings shaped how people felt inside them. She didn't just listen, she engaged. When the event ended, Marcus surprised himself by asking for a number. She gave it easily, without hesitation. Their relationship unfolded gently, without force. Dinner dates turned into long evening walks. Weekend hikes became confessional spaces where they talked about past mistakes and future hopes. Marcus, still bruised from a divorce 5 years earlier, felt parts of himself reopening, slowly, carefully. Claire never rushed him. She made patience feel natural. She made him feel safe. After a year, they moved in together. Marcus's downtown loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and too much empty space. Claire filled it effortlessly. Her clothes mixed with his. Her books joined his shelves. Her presence softened the sharp edges of solitude Marcus had grown used to. "I love you," he told her on their first anniversary, his heart pounding as if he were stepping off a ledge. "I love you too," she replied, holding his face. "You're the safest person I've ever known. I trust you completely." "I trust you too," Marcus said, and he meant it with every part of himself. Over the next 2 years, that trust deepened. Marcus began including Claire in business decisions, valuing her financial insight. When his firm landed several major contracts and profits surged, Claire helped him invest wisely, or so it seemed. She opened accounts in both their names, built portfolios, managed everything with calm confidence. "You're incredible at this," Marcus would say, scanning the organized reports she prepared. "I'd be lost without you." "That's partnership," she'd reply with a smile. "We take care of each other." It felt right, like building a future brick by brick. Claire met his family, his mother, his sister, his nephew, who adored her instantly. Holidays blended seamlessly. Marriage became a topic discussed softly, hopefully. Marcus even began looking at engagement rings, imagining how he'd ask. Friends noticed a change in him. "You seem lighter," James, his business partner, said once. "Happier." And Marcus was. Claire supported his work, celebrated his wins, steadied him during losses. When a major project collapsed and self-doubt crept in, she reassured him. "Don't worry about money," she'd say. "I've got that covered. Focus on what you love." So he did. Looking back, Marcus would realize there were signs, quiet ones. Claire became more private with her phone, calls taken in other rooms. A new passcode. When he mentioned it casually, she laughed it off. Client confidentiality. You understand. He did, or thought he did. Her work hours grew longer. Finances became vague. When Marcus asked to review their investments, she dismissed the idea gently. "It's all fine. You don't need to stress over details. And Marcus let it go, because questioning felt like distrust, and distrust felt like failure. Even when his mother gently suggested he stay informed about joint finances, Marcus grew defensive. "We're fine," he said. "I trust her." He needed to believe that, because if he couldn't trust Claire, if this love was another illusion, then maybe the problem wasn't the world. Maybe it was him. So Marcus chose trust again. Night after night, wrapped his arms around Claire as she whispered, "I love you." "I love you too," he replied, completely trusting. And that trust would become the foundation of his undoing. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in October. Marcus was in his office, reviewing blueprints for a community center designed to serve low-income families, when James knocked on the door. His expression was wrong. Too careful, too apologetic, like someone delivering bad news they wish they didn't have to say out loud. "Hey, there's someone here to see you," James said slowly. "She says it's urgent. Financial matter." Something tightened in Marcus's chest, sharp and unexplained. "Who is it?" "Representative from Summit Bank. She asked if everything's okay with your accounts." Marcus frowned. "Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?" James didn't answer. He just stepped aside. The woman who entered introduced herself as Patricia Chun, a senior accounts manager. She was professional, composed, but uncomfortable. That alone made Marcus uneasy. "Mr. Shaw," she began, opening a leather portfolio, "I apologize for coming to your workplace. We've tried contacting you by phone and mail, but this matter is time-sensitive." "What matter?" Marcus asked. "I don't understand." Patricia slid several documents across the desk. "The joint business account you opened 18 months ago with Ms. Claire Morrison listed as co-manager has been systematically drained over the last 6 months." Marcus stared at the papers, not fully processing the words. "Drained out?" The account previously held approximately $340,000. As of this morning, the balance is $1,247. The room tilted. "That's not possible," Marcus said faintly. "Those are our savings. Our investments. Claire manages them." "Yes," Patricia replied carefully. "She has been managing them by transferring funds, initially to legitimate investments. But in recent months, large amounts were redirected to personal accounts and destinations that triggered our fraud detection system." She turned another page. Transfers Marcus had never seen. Withdrawals he'd never approved. His name was there, his authority, but Claire had full access. And she'd used it. "How didn't I know?" Marcus whispered. "I would have seen statements." The statements were redirected to an email address associated solely with Ms. Morrison, Patricia said. "You signed an authorization form for that." She showed him the document. His signature stared back at him. He remembered it now. Claire smiling, saying it was just an update. Just paperwork. James stood frozen in the doorway. "Where did the money go?" Marcus asked. Patricia hesitated. "Some to investment accounts, others to personal accounts in Ms. Morrison's name, and a significant portion to expenses tied to another individual." Marcus's breath caught. "Who?" "A man named David Chun." The name meant nothing, but the implication meant everything. "She's been financially supporting him," Patricia continued quietly. "Rent, credit cards, living expenses, for at least 8 months. 8 months. The late nights, the phone secrecy, the dismissals, the trust. All of it collapsed at once." "What do I do?" Marcus asked, his voice barely there. "Contact a lawyer immediately," Patricia said. "The situation is complex, but there may be grounds for fraud." "I'm truly sorry." After she left, silence filled the office. The blueprints on Marcus's desk felt absurd now. He'd been building spaces for others while his own life was being dismantled piece by piece. "Call her," James said. "Now." Marcus dialed Claire's number. Voicemail. Again and again. After the 5th attempt, the call went straight to voicemail. He called her office. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said. "Ms. Morrison left the firm 3 weeks ago. We assumed you knew." 3 weeks. Marcus drove home in a fog. The loft was empty when he arrived. At first, everything looked normal until it didn't. Her laptop was gone. Her jewelry box. Dresses missing. The suitcase. toiletries carefully removed. She'd been preparing, leaving quietly, while still sleeping beside him, still saying, "I love you." His phone buzzed. An unknown number. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I'll be in touch through a lawyer. Please don't contact me." See, that was it. After 3 years, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed as darkness filled the apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of a life he thought was real. He had trusted her with everything, and she had used that trust to destroy him. Marcus didn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. He lay on his bed, their bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying 3 years of relationship like a crime scene investigation, looking for the clues he'd missed. The late nights, the vague answers, the privacy with her phone, the way she discouraged him from looking at their finances. The man Patricia had mentioned, David Chun. Had Claire been with him on all those late nights she claimed were work? Had she been spending Marcus's money on someone else while lying beside him in bed? Around 3 a.m., Marcus got up and opened his laptop. Started searching. Claire Morris and David Chun yielded nothing immediately useful. He tried variations, scrolled through social media profiles, found nothing concrete, but felt increasingly sick anyway. He opened his email and searched for financial statements. Found some older ones from before Claire had changed the mailing address. The accounts had been healthy, then growing steadily. He'd been building something, security, a future, a foundation for the life they were supposed to share. Then he searched for more recent emails. Found very few. She'd been filtering them, he realized, setting up rules so he wouldn't see certain correspondence. He found a folder buried in his email settings, Claire/finances. Dozens of statements he'd never seen. Marcus opened them one by one, watching the systematic decimation of their accounts. Large transfers starting 8 months ago. Smaller, regular withdrawals for the past 6 months. Purchases he didn't recognize. Payments to accounts he'd never heard of. She'd been stealing from him for at least 8 months. Probably longer. While telling him she loved him. While planning their future. While lying beside him every single night. The sun rose over the city, lights streaming through those floor-to-ceiling windows that suddenly felt like a prison. Marcus looked around the loft he'd been so proud of, the one he'd invited Claire into, the space they'd made theirs, and it all felt contaminated now, poisoned by deception. His phone showed 17 missed calls from James, messages asking if he was okay, if he needed anything. Messages from his mother. James called. "What's going on? Please call me." Marcus couldn't talk to anyone, couldn't explain, couldn't face the pity or the "I told you so's," or the concerned questions about how he could have been so blind. He showered mechanically, dressed, forced himself to go to the office. Work was impossible. He sat at his desk, staring at blueprints without seeing them, his mind stuck in an endless loop of betrayal and self-recrimination. James came in around 10. "Marcus, talk to me. There's nothing to say. She stole our savings. Nearly $340,000. She's been lying about everything for months. She's gone. That's it. Have you talked to a lawyer?" "Not yet. You need to. Today. This isn't just heartbreak. This is fraud. Theft. You have legal options. Legal options against someone I trusted completely? Someone I gave everything to willingly." Marcus laughed bitterly. "What am I supposed to say?" "Your Honor, I was stupid enough to trust my girlfriend with access to our accounts, and she used that trust to rob me blind. I enabled this, James. I handed her the keys to my life. She exploited you. That's not the same as you enabling her." "Marcus, you're not thinking clearly. This is shock. Trauma. You need help. Legal help. Maybe therapeutic help. You can't just sit here and accept this." But accepting it was all Marcus felt capable of doing. Fighting back required energy, anger, a sense that justice was possible. He felt none of those things. Only numbness. Hollowness. The specific emptiness that comes from having your trust weaponized against you. Days blurred. Marcus went through the motions. Contacted a lawyer who explained, apologetically, that the legal situation was complicated. Claire had been an authorized user on the accounts. Proving fraud would require showing she'd gained that authorization through deception or had used the funds in ways explicitly contrary to their agreed purpose. It was possible, but not guaranteed. And frankly, the lawyer said, even if we win in court, recovering the money is another challenge. If she's already spent it or transferred it to accounts we can't access, a judgment doesn't help much. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. Marcus's mother came to the loft, found him sitting in the dark, surrounded by the remnants of a life that no longer existed. Baby, she said, using the endearment she hadn't used since he was young. You need to eat. You need to talk. You need to let people help you. How did you know? Marcus asked, when you asked about the finances. How did you know something was wrong? His mother sat beside him. I didn't know. I saw how completely you trusted her, how you'd stop paying attention to anything she handled. And I worried, not because of her specifically, just because that level of blind trust with anyone is dangerous. I wanted you to stay involved, stay aware, not because I thought she was stealing, but because complete trust without verification is how people get hurt. So you tried to warn me, and I got defensive. You were in love. Love makes us want to trust completely, makes us think suspicion is betrayal. But healthy relationships have transparency, not just trust. She avoided transparency. That worried me. Marcus put his head in his hands. I feel so stupid. Everyone probably thinks I'm an idiot. No one thinks that. Everyone thinks you're hurt. Betrayed. That's not the same as stupid. His mother put her arm around him. Marcus, this isn't your fault. She chose to lie. She chose to steal. She chose to betray you. Your only mistake was believing someone you loved. That's not a character flaw. That's being human. But it felt like a character flaw. It felt like fundamental stupidity. How had he not seen it? How had he ignored every sign? How had he let someone dismantle his life while he smiled and said, I trust you? 2 weeks after the bank meeting, Marcus received an email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject line was simple, I thought you should know. Inside was a link to a social media profile. David Chun. Marcus hesitated, then clicked. The profile showed a man about Marcus's age, handsome in a polished way, smiling in photos at restaurants and bars and vacation spots that looked expensive. Recent photos. Photos from the past year. Marcus scrolled, his stomach churning. And then he saw it. A photo from 3 months ago. David Chun at a beachside restaurant, arm around a woman. Claire. Marcus's Claire, except she wasn't his, had never really been his. She was smiling in the photo, looking relaxed and happy, and nothing like someone who was betraying her partner. The caption read, Perfect weekend with my perfect girl. Hashtag blessed hashtag couple goals. 3 months ago, while Claire had still been living with Marcus, still sharing his bed, still saying she loved him. Marcus clicked through more photos. There were dozens featuring Claire, going back almost a year. Beach trips, restaurant dates, concerts. A whole parallel relationship documented publicly while Marcus had remained completely unaware. The comments on the photos were congratulatory, affectionate. Friends saying they made a great couple. Someone commenting, Finally found the right one, David. She's a keeper. Marcus felt physically ill. This wasn't just financial betrayal. This was a complete double life. She'd been in a full relationship with someone else for at least a year, maybe longer, while maintaining the fiction with Marcus. He kept scrolling, hating himself for looking, but unable to stop. Found a photo from 8 months ago, David standing in front of a luxury apartment building. New place. Couldn't have done it without my amazing girl's help. Hashtag new beginnings. Her help. Financial help. Marcus's money. Used to set up her boyfriend's apartment while she lived in Marcus's loft and pretended to be building a future with him. There was a video from 6 months ago. David and Claire at a club, dancing, laughing, kissing. Full kissing. Intimate. The way couples kiss when they're comfortable with each other. Familiar. Established. Marcus closed the laptop, breathing hard. The financial betrayal had been devastating. But this, seeing the evidence of her other life, her other relationship, her complete deception, this was something else entirely. This wasn't opportunistic theft. This was calculated, sustained, elaborate lying. Every single day for over a year. He opened his phone and scrolled back through messages with Claire. Loving texts. Planned for dinner. Her telling him she'd be late because of work. Would he mind ordering in? All lies. She'd been with David. With her real boyfriend. Using Marcus as what? A place to live? A financial resource? A convenient fiction while she built her actual life elsewhere? Marcus stood and started moving through the loft, really looking this time, noticing all the small absences. Most of her things were gone now. She must have been removing them gradually for weeks, maybe months, taking a few items each time Marcus was at work. He noticed the gaps, but had assumed she was reorganizing, donating things, normal domestic activities. She'd been moving out in slow motion while he remained oblivious. He found a box in the back of the closet he'd never seen before. Inside were greeting cards, birthday cards, anniversary cards, Valentine's cards, all from David to Claire, going back 2 years. 2 years. She'd been with David for at least 2 years while she'd been with Marcus for 3. Their entire relationship had been alive from almost the beginning. Marcus sat on the floor surrounded by the cards, reading David's messages to Claire. "You're my everything. Can't wait to start our life together. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Had David known about Marcus? Or was he being deceived too? Was Claire living some kind of triple life? Line of both men? One card was different, more recent, from about 6 months ago. David's handwriting. "I know this has been hard, maintaining the situation with them, but it's almost over. Just a few more months of patience, and we'll be free and clear. Then it's our life, our future, everything we've planned. I love you. Worth the wait. Marcus." She'd told David about him. They discussed the situation, maintaining it, using it. Marcus wasn't a partner or even a victim. He was a situation to be managed until they'd extracted everything they needed. The cards fell from Marcus's hands. He couldn't breathe. The walls of the loft felt like they were closing in. Everything he thought he'd known about his life, his relationship, his judgment, his reality, all of it was fiction. He'd been living in an elaborate lie while thinking it was love. His phone rang. James. Marcus ignored it. It rang again. His mother. Ignored. A text from his sister. "Mom told me what happened. I'm so sorry. Please let us help." Marcus turned off his phone. He couldn't talk to anyone. Couldn't explain that the betrayal was so much worse than they knew. Couldn't admit that he'd been this profoundly stupid, this completely blind. He'd trusted her with everything. Not just his money, his heart, his future, his sense of himself as someone capable of choosing right, of building something real, of learning from past mistakes. And she'd used that trust to systematically dismantle his life while living another life entirely with someone else. Marcus sat in the growing dark. He always seemed to be sitting in the dark lately, and realized that the woman he'd loved had never existed. Claire Morrison, as he'd known her, was a performance. A character she'd played convincingly for 3 years while her real life happened elsewhere. He didn't know who she actually was. Didn't know what had been real, if anything. Didn't know if she'd ever felt anything genuine for him, or if he'd been nothing but a resource to exploit while she built her actual future with David. The not knowing might be worse than the knowing. At least the financial betrayal had been concrete. Money stolen, accounts emptied, clear and prosecutable. But this? Emotional fraud? A fake relationship maintained for years? How did you even begin to process that? How did you trust your own judgment ever again when you'd been this catastrophically wrong? Marcus looked around the loft. The home he'd been so proud of, the life he'd thought he was building, and saw only emptiness. Not physical emptiness, spiritual emptiness. The hollow space where a future used to be. He'd trusted her with everything, and everything had been a lie. Marcus didn't decide to confront Claire. The decision made itself. 3 weeks after the discovery, a certified letter arrived. Formal, cold, from Claire's lawyer, requesting mediation regarding the division of shared assets and resolution of financial matters. Shared assets. The phrase made Marcus's hands shake with fury, as if she hadn't already taken nearly everything, as if what she'd done could be reframed as a disagreement instead of theft. He called the lawyer immediately. "I want to speak to Claire Morrison directly," Marcus said, his voice unnaturally calm. Before any mediation, there was a pause. "Ms. Morrison has requested that all communication—" "I don't care what she requested," Marcus interrupted. "Tell her this. 1 meeting. In person. Neutral location. or I press criminal charges. Fraud. Theft. I have documentation for every dollar. One conversation. After that, she can hide behind lawyers for the rest of her life. The lawyer promised to pass along the message. 2 days later, a text arrived from an unknown number. Coffee shop on 5th and Main. Thursday, 2 p.m. Come alone. Thursday was gray and cold. Marcus stood outside the cafe for several minutes, watching through the window. Claire sat alone at a corner table. She looked different. Shorter hair, different clothes, new posture, like someone who'd already stepped fully into a new life. Or maybe, Marcus realized with a sick twist in his stomach, this was who she'd always been. He walked in. She looked up, her expression carefully neutral. No warmth, no guilt, just caution, calculation. They sat in silence. "Thank you for meeting me," Marcus said flatly. "I didn't want to," Claire replied. "My lawyer advised against it. But the threat of criminal charges. Were you ever going to tell me?" Marcus asked. "Or were you just going to disappear once you'd taken everything?" She looked out the window. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. I thought I could manage it better. End things cleanly." "Cleanly," Marcus said, disbelief creeping into his voice. "You stole almost $350,000. You lied to me every day. You were in another relationship while sleeping beside me. What part of that was clean?" "I did love you," she said quietly. "In my way. In your way." Marcus repeated. "What does that even mean?" "It means I cared," she said. "But David is who I'm meant to be with. We've been together since before I met you." Marcus stared at her. "So what was I?" She hesitated. "At first, David and I were on a break. I thought maybe it was over. You were kind, stable, safe. I liked you. But then David and I got back together, and by then I was living with you. Integrated. It felt too complicated to untangle." "So you kept both?" Marcus said slowly. "For 2 years. And you used my money to support him." "You had plenty," she said bluntly. "You never checked. You trusted me. It was easy. So this is my fault?" Marcus asked. "For trusting you? I'm just saying you made it possible." Marcus laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "I trusted you because I loved you. And I took advantage of that," she said. "I know. I'm not proud of it." But she didn't sound ashamed, just tired. "Did you ever actually love me?" Marcus asked quietly. She thought for a moment. "Maybe. And maybe you were also useful." "What was the plan?" he asked. "Steal everything and vanish?" "I was going to tell you," she said. "Eventually, once David and I had enough saved. I thought of the money as compensation." "Compensation," Marcus repeated, "for the role I played, for keeping your life stable. You'll be fine, Marcus. You still have a loft. Your business. You didn't just take money," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You took my trust, my future. You took who I was and made me question everything about myself." She shifted uncomfortably. "You're safe. Predictable. David is exciting. He makes me feel alive." Something inside Marcus went cold. He stood. "I didn't come here for an apology," he said quietly. "I came to see if there was any humanity left to appeal to. I see now there never was." He leaned closer. "Keep your lawyer. You're going to need him, because the courts are about to balance the scales." Marcus walked out without looking back. The confrontation didn't give him closure, but gave him clarity, and clarity was the beginning of something else entirely. The legal battle that followed was a grueling, soul-sucking marathon. It turned out Claire had been clever, but not as clever as she thought. By moving money into accounts associated with David Chun, she had created a paper trail of third-party benefits that qualified as grand larceny and interstate fraud. For 6 months, Marcus lived in a state of professional hibernation. He worked, but the passion was gone. Every contract he signed was scrutinized by 3 different people. Every new person he met was viewed through a lens of deep, reflexive suspicion. He sold the downtown loft. He couldn't stand the way the light hit the floor where her suitcase used to sit. He moved into a small, quiet house in the suburbs, a place with no floor-to-ceiling windows, just solid walls and a small garden. The David Chun from the photos was eventually brought in for questioning. It turned out David was just as much a victim of Claire's narrative as Marcus, though in a different way. She had told David that Marcus was a controlling, abusive ex who refused to settle a debt. David had believed he was being saved by Claire's financial prowess. When the truth came out, David's perfect life collapsed too. The money was largely gone, spent on luxury rentals, high-end dinners, and investments that were nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Marcus recovered barely 30 cents on the dollar after legal fees. But as James told him over a beer in his new, modest kitchen, "You didn't lose $340,000, Marcus. You paid $340,000 to find out exactly who was standing next to you before you gave her the rest of your life. In the long run, that's a bargain." A year later, Marcus stood on a construction site for a new low-income housing project. It was the first design he'd done since the betrayal that felt real. It wasn't flashy or prestigious. It was sturdy. It was honest. It was built to last. His sister arrived with his nephew, who ran through the unfinished frame of the building, laughing. Marcus watched them, feeling a strange, quiet warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't the fiery, blind safety he'd felt with Claire. It was something harder, something forged. He had started seeing a therapist, not to learn how to trust others, but to learn how to trust himself again. He realized his mistake wasn't loving Claire. It was abandoning his own intuition to maintain the fantasy of a perfect life. As the sun began to set, a woman he'd been working with on the project, Sarah, the lead engineer, approached him with a clipboard. They'd worked together for months. She was straightforward, sometimes blunt, and had a habit of pointing out the flaws in his designs before they became problems. "The foundation is poured," she said, nodding toward the concrete. "It's solid. Verified. I checked the specs myself." Marcus looked at the foundation, then at Sarah. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel the urge to double-check her work or look for a hidden motive in her eyes. "Thanks, Sarah," he said. "I trust your judgment." He meant it. But this time, it wasn't blind trust. It was the trust of an architect who knew that the strongest structures aren't the ones that never face a storm. They're the ones that are built, stone by stone, with full knowledge of the wind. He walked to his car, leaving the wreckage of Marcus Shaw, the victim, behind on the construction site. He was an architect again, and he was finally ready to build something that wouldn't fall down.